Okay, welcome back, everybody. Can you hear me well in the different corners of the auditorium? So I'm going to just record the first 5 minutes, just to repeat some messages, and then, as we discussed on Monday and Wednesday, we are going to use Fridays to solve exercises. And typically, what you are going to see is that you will have available the exercise set roughly 10-12 days before the deadline. So the deadline for this one is next Friday, not today. And typically you will see the next homework assignment popping up roughly 10-12 days before the deadline. You've probably seen that on D2L, we always give a little bit of leeway in the sense that I put a deadline, the kind of for your planning on Fridays. But then there's always room for additional time. So I put a normal deadline within D2L, which is a soft deadline on Sundays. Because, you know, things may happen. You're getting back home on Friday, your dog has run away and you use the rest of the evening to find your dog again. Or you meet some good friends and they invite you to dinner and then that day is gone. And then suddenly you come back at 1 o'clock in the night and you say, oh, I had to hand in these exercises. So we wanted to give you this flexibility. What I also wanted to repeat a little bit is about the office hours which we have. So we have office hours after the lectures. On Wednesdays and Fridays, there's not supposed to be anyone here. It can change, but we will hang around. So typically on Friday, if you want to hang around and discuss the exercises, feel free to do that. Abby has office hours on, let me just repeat that one and just scroll down on the screen here. So Abby has office hours on Thursdays. And as you can see here, she wanted to be in the help room in BPS. So we're trying to have office hours before you have the deadline. So that means that you can always swing by and ask. And when I say ask, there's something I wanted to say here. Because we, at least that's the way I was when I was a student. I always found it very difficult to go to the professor up there and ask questions. I found it very intimidating. And we want you actually to not feel like that. I mean, we want to have questions. We want to have a dialogue. So the whole thing with this kind of setting is that Shu Yu and myself, we are going to float around. Don't hesitate to ask questions because it's through the dialogue that we learn, right? And so that's very important. I mean, I had actually a colleague once who, when he graded, he actually deducted points for every question which students asked. I think that's a horrible way of approaching the process of learning. So we are after your insights about the problems, and insights are something which come through dialogue. So don't hesitate to ask questions. Don't be timid. Don't be like I was. I never dare to ask questions. The other thing is also that sometimes the exercise may not be well explained. There may be wordings which can be confusing. Sometimes in the textbooks, they often, some textbooks can have a convoluted way of expressing things because there may be specific initial conditions which lead to an analytical solution. And you really have to tweak the words to understand what is being asked for. So in case you are in doubt, never hesitate to ask, okay? Are there problems from you guys? Good. I mean, the dialogue is essential for me. If I don't have the dialogue, I mean, it's boring to teach. Shu Yu wanted to change the office hour. So we're going to change that one. I have another additional one. We used to have that last year. So if you feel lonely in the evenings, you can always get in touch with me if you want to. And I have an office hour from 8 to 9 if you have questions about things. And you can just use the Zoom link, which we have for the lectures. And I will just keep that open. The final thing I wanted to say a little bit about before we move on. Yeah, maybe I should show this one. So I mentioned in the very beginning, I'm a big fan of procrastination. That doesn't mean that you should postpone things. I mean, the deadlines are for your planning, and it's always useful to actually do things on time. I like actually this drawing, and it's so difficult to get to this island, get it done. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's actually my daughter who gave it to me because she thinks I'm a horrible procrastinator. The other thing I just wanted to quickly do before we move on to the solving the exercises is a quick thing about the numerical part. So let me just bring that up. So this is a solution which you will see a little bit later. So when after the deadline, we typically post the solution. When it comes to the Python part, the first part deals more with you reminding yourself a little bit about things like NumPy and other ways of setting up arrays. And the reason for that is that in the exercise here, you're going to have a data set which you would typically convert into an array. And in this case, we have Usain Bolt's 100-meter record, world record in 2008. And you're going to convert these numbers into an array, one for X, the position, and one for time. And typically in this case, they measured every 10 meters the time which Usain Bolt used. And in this case, what I've done, this is a small hint about the numerical exercise. In the data, you don't have the results at time equals 0. So it's convenient when you're calculating the velocity between each measurement. It's convenient then because if you don't add 0, you're going to subtract something which you haven't defined. And you know that when you run out of the dimensionality of an array, you can get something which is a segmentation fault. And you probably met these kind of things when you did program in Python in CSME 201. And in this specific case, what I did was to add a 0 for time 0 and position 0 when Usain Bolt was in the blocks. And that makes it a little bit easier to actually plot things. And the thing you are tasked with, besides plotting the position against time, is also to calculate something which we call the instantaneous average velocity, which is just the distance between two measurements divided by the time difference. And then it's the total average, which is the position at a given time minus the initial position here. And this array runs now from 1 because the element 0 here is the one where we put the zeros. So we don't need to start running from that one. And then we end at the last element here. And at the end, you can plot it, or you can just make a table. I don't know if you're familiar with a Python library, which is called Pandas. Have you used that library? That's an extremely useful library. And it allows you to get very nice formatted output here. And this is a typical example of what you will get when you run the codes. So I'm going to stop here. And we are just going to solve the exercises. When you have questions, raise your hand. We are going to float around. Shu Yu is also going to keep a small eye on the people online. Abby has lectures till 3:50, but she's going to be here at 4 o'clock. So she will also hang around after 4 o'clock. And we will typically be here till roughly 5, if you wish to stay that long. I mean, if you wish to go or you have other plans, obviously have to do that. Goodie, I'm stopping the recording, and then we just keep working.